Read people like a book. How to analyze, understand, and predict people's emotions, thoughts, intentions, and behaviors by Patrick King. Part 1. It's one of the most staggering facts about our daily existence. A huge 55% of our communication is not conveyed through the words we speak, but through our body language. Another 38% comes from our tone of voice. That leaves a mere 7% for the actual words. Think about that. We spend our lives mastering language, choosing our words so carefully, yet they account for less than a tenth of what we're actually communicating. This isn't just a fun fact. It's the root cause of so much of the confusion, conflict, and missed connections in our lives. We're listening to the wrong channel. We believe we're good at understanding people, that we have a natural gift for it, but the reality is, we're often completely wrong. We're living in a world of mystery, where every person we meet is a locked black box, their true thoughts, feelings, and intentions hidden from us. This isn't a personal failing. It's a trap we've all fallen into. The trap is believing that what people say is what they mean. The escape, the path to true understanding, is learning to read the other 93%. It's a skill, not a superpower, and it's something anyone can learn. The man who offers us the key to unlock this skill is Patrick King. King isn't an academic in an ivory tower. He's a social interaction and conversation coach, someone who has dedicated his career to dissecting the mechanics of human connection. Through his work, he's seen firsthand how a fundamental misunderstanding of others can hold people back in their careers, their relationships, and their personal growth. His book, Read People Like a Book, isn't just a collection of theories. It's a practical field guide. It takes the complex tools used by FBI agents, clinical psychologists, and master communicators and breaks them down into simple, learnable techniques. In this audio summary, we will embark on a journey to dismantle the illusions that prevent us from truly seeing others. First, we'll uncover the invisible puppet strings of motivation that dictate every human action. Then, we will learn the silent language of the body, decoding the secrets it tells without uttering a single word. After that, we'll explore the core blueprints of personality, so you can understand a person's fundamental operating system. And finally, we'll step into the shoes of a detective, learning how to spot deceit, not by looking for a single clue, but by masterfully navigating a conversation. Get ready to turn the page on how you see the world, because after this, you'll never look at another person the same way again. The invisible puppeteer, what truly drives human behavior. Have you ever looked at someone's actions and thought, why on earth would they do that? It seems illogical, self-defeating, or just plain bizarre. Here's the secret. Nobody acts for no reason at all. To understand, predict, or influence anyone's behavior, you first have to understand the fuel that powers their engine. You have to understand what motivates them. And the most fundamental driver of all. It's a principle so simple, it's almost primal. It's the pleasure principle. First brought to mass consciousness by Sigmund Freud. This idea states that every single action a human being takes is designed to do one of two things: seek pleasure or avoid pain. That's it. From getting a haircut because you think it will make you more attractive, to wearing a protective mask to avoid getting hurt, every decision can be traced back to this basic, universal motivation. But that's not all. Here's the crucial point. People will work far harder to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. The instinct to jump away from an oncoming truck will always outweigh the desire to grab a treasure chest in its path. The fear of pain is a more powerful, more immediate motivator. Can you see how powerful this is? When you see someone acting in a way that seems irrational, ask yourself, What pain are they desperately trying to avoid? What perceived threat is so great that it's overriding everything else? Now, follow this logic. If avoiding pain is the primary driver, what happens when the truth itself is painful? What happens when admitting a flaw, a mistake, or a fear is too much for the mind to handle? That's when the mind deploys its most powerful defense system, the ego. Think of the ego as a heavily armored, hyper-sensitive porcupine, terrified of looking foolish or wrong. When it feels threatened, it doesn't care about facts or logic. It just wants to stop the discomfort, and it will bend reality to do so. This gives birth to a whole suite of defense mechanisms, which are like psychological tricks the mind plays on itself. And once you can spot them in others, you gain an incredible insight into their deepest insecurities. The most common is denial. This is when a person simply declares that a painful truth is false. They're not just disagreeing. They are rewriting reality because the truth is too threatening to accept. You see this in the person who, despite a string of car accidents, insists they are an excellent driver. Then there's rationalization, the art of making excuses. Here, the person accepts the fact, but invents a reason why it's not their fault. The boss secretly hates them, their coworkers are plotting against them, the traffic was unpredictable. It's the sour grapes defense. The fox who can't reach the grapes convinces himself they were probably sour anyway. He'd rather be hungry than admit his failure. But what about the person who seems to overreact? Whose anger or outrage seems completely disproportionate to the situation? You might be witnessing displacement. This is when the ego takes an unacceptable feeling, like anger at a powerful boss, and redirects it toward a safer target, like their partner, their children, or even the dog. They can't confront the real source of their pain, so they create a new, less threatening one. Interesting, isn't it? But perhaps the most fascinating defense of all is projection. This is where a person takes a quality they can't accept in themselves and attributes it to someone else. The man who is cheating on his wife suddenly becomes convinced that she is the one being secretive. The person who secretly feels unintelligent is the first to call everyone else's ideas stupid. They are literally projecting their own shadow onto the world around them. And what is this shadow? It's a concept from the psychologist Carl Jung, and it's another key to unlocking human motivation. The shadow contains all the parts of ourselves that we have rejected or disowned. Our fear, our rage, our vanity, our weakness. We push these things down, out of sight, pretending they don't exist. But they do. And it takes immense energy to keep them suppressed, like holding a beach ball underwater. Eventually, that ball is going to pop up. Have you ever known someone who was raised in a super strict, disciplined household, only to go wild as a young adult? That's the shadow bursting forth. Their deep, unmet need for freedom and rebellion, suppressed for years, finally explodes to the surface. So, when you meet someone who seems incredibly one-sided, aggressively virtuous, excessively positive, unbelievably disciplined, ask yourself, what are they suppressing? What does their shadow look like? Because that hidden part of them is still there, driving their behavior in ways they can't even see. This hidden part of us often takes the form of what psychologists call the inner child. It's the part of us that learned in childhood what was acceptable and what wasn't. Have you ever been in an argument with a grown adult and felt like you were dealing with a pouting child throwing a tantrum? That's the inner child taking over. When you see someone reacting with disproportionate emotion, sudden anger, hurt, or defensiveness, it's a clue that a deep, childlike nerve has been touched. And here's the crucial point. If you recognize you're dealing with someone's inner child, you can avoid falling into the parent role. Instead of scolding or placating them, you can choose to engage with their adult self. changing the entire dynamic of the conflict. So we have the drive for pleasure and away from pain. We have the ego's defense mechanisms. We have the hidden shadow and the inner child. But there's one more map we need to understand: human motivation. It's perhaps the most famous of all. The Pyramid of Needs, a map of human desire. What if I told you that a person's main motivation in life can be predicted by where they stand on a simple pyramid? This isn't a mystical idea. It's one of the most famous models in psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In the 1940s, a psychologist named Abraham Maslow proposed a revolutionary idea. Human beings are driven by a set of basic needs, and these needs are arranged in a hierarchy. You cannot focus on a higher need until the lower ones are met. It's a ladder of desire that explains why a billionaire philanthropist and a starving artist are motivated by completely different things. At the very bottom of the pyramid, the foundation, are our physiological needs. This is about basic survival: food, water, shelter, sleep. If you are starving, your entire world, your every motivation, revolves around getting food. You're not thinking about your career, your relationships, or your life's purpose. Nothing else matters. Once those needs are met, you move up to the next level: safety needs. You have food today, but what about tomorrow? This level is about security: a steady income, a safe place to live, protection from harm. You can see why so many people get stuck on these first two levels. Their lives are a constant struggle for survival and security, leaving no room for higher aspirations. But if you are safe and secure, you find that it feels empty without others to share it with. And that brings us to the third level: love and belonging. Humans are social creatures. We are driven by the need for friendship, family, intimacy, and a sense of connection to a community. This is a major sticking point for many people. How many people do you know whose happiness is capped because they lack the deep, meaningful relationships that fulfill this need? So let's say you have love and belonging. Is that it? Not quite. And you'll never guess what comes next. It's self-esteem. You can have relationships, but are they healthy ones that make you feel confident and respected? This level is about achievement, gaining the respect of others, and most importantly, accepting yourself. It's about feeling competent and valued. And finally, at the very pinnacle of the pyramid, the highest human motivation is self-actualization. This is the desire to become the most that one can be. It's about living for something higher than yourself: morality, creativity, spontaneity, purpose. This is the level where people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, having satisfied every other need, turn to philanthropy to make a lasting impact on the world. Now, why is this pyramid so important for reading people? Because it's a diagnostic tool. By observing a person's priorities, their worries, and their goals, you can make an educated guess about which level of the pyramid they are currently focused on. And once you know that, you know what truly motivates them. Imagine a counselor at a women's shelter. A woman who has just arrived, fleeing violence, is on the first two levels. She needs safety and security. It would be useless to talk to her about forgiveness or finding her life's purpose. But for a woman who has been at the shelter for months, whose safety is secure, the need for belonging and self-esteem will be paramount. The counselor who understands this can tailor their communication perfectly, meeting each woman exactly where she is. So the next time you interact with someone, look at their life through the lens of this pyramid. Are they worried about paying rent? They're on the safety level. Are they obsessed with getting a promotion or gaining recognition? They're on the esteem level. Are they talking about finding their true calling? They're reaching for self-actualization. This pyramid is your map to their inner world. It allows you to see their behavior not as random or strange, but as a logical expression of their deepest, most fundamental needs. You are no longer guessing, you are decoding. Part 2. The body never lies, decoding the silent language. We've explored the invisible forces of motivation, the hidden drivers that operate beneath the surface of a person's consciousness. But now, we move from the unseen to the seen. Because while people can try to conceal their motivations, their bodies cannot. There is a constant, silent conversation happening in every interaction, a language spoken without words. And guess what? This silent language is often more honest than the words coming out of a person's mouth. The man who taught the FBI how to read this language is Joe Navarro. As a former agent, Navarro knew that in high-stakes interrogations, you couldn't rely on what people said. You had to watch what they did. He understood that our bodies have what he calls tells, tiny involuntary movements that reveal our true feelings of comfort, fear, or hostility. This happens because our brain has two systems for communication. The newer part, the prefrontal cortex, is responsible for language. It's the part that can lie. But the older, more primitive part, the limbic brain, controls our instinctive physical responses, and it is brutally honest. When it senses a threat, even just a difficult question or an uncomfortable topic, it reacts instantly. It engages the ancient survival response: freeze, fight, or flight. You've seen the freeze response. It's the person who, when put on the spot, looks like a deer in headlights. They might suddenly become very still, locking their legs around their chair, a subconscious attempt to brace for impact. The flight response is about creating distance. The person might lean back, turn their feet toward the exit, or place an object like a bag or a book on their lap as a barrier. And the fight response? This isn't always physical. It can be verbal sparring, picking an argument, or using aggressive, intimidating gestures. But here's where it gets really interesting. Our limbic brain doesn't just react to threats. It also tries to calm us down. It engages in what are called pacifying behaviors. These are the little self-soothing gestures people make when they're feeling stressed, insecure, or uncomfortable. And once you learn to spot them, you'll see them everywhere. One of the most common pacifying zones is the neck. The neck is a vulnerable area, home to the jugular vein. When people feel threatened, they instinctively touch or cover this area. A man might adjust his tie, or squeeze the back of his neck. A woman might touch the little notch between her collarbones, or play with her necklace. This isn't a conscious act. It's the limbic brain saying, "I feel exposed and uncomfortable." Other pacifying behaviors include touching the forehead or temples, stroking the cheeks, wringing the hands, or even puffing out the cheeks and exhaling loudly. Have you ever seen someone do that after a near miss in traffic or hearing bad news? That's a massive stress release. These aren't just random tics. They are windows into a person's real-time emotional state. The general principle is this: bodies expand when they are confident, happy, or dominant, and they contract when they are fearful, unhappy, or threatened. A confident person takes up space. They might stand with their hands on their hips, arms akimbo, leaving their torso exposed in a show of fearlessness. A nervous or submissive person will do the opposite. They will try to make themselves smaller, crossing their arms, hunching their shoulders, trying to physically shrink. But here's the trap most people fall into. They look for a single clue. They see folded arms and think defensive or lying. But what if the person is just cold? The secret, as any expert will tell you, is to look for clusters of behavior. One gesture means nothing. But 3 or 4 gestures, all telling the same story, now you have something. You must establish a person's normal baseline first. How do they act when they're relaxed and comfortable? Any deviation from that baseline is what's telling, and the most powerful cluster of all. Look for discrepancies between the verbal and the nonverbal. When someone is telling you, "I'm fine, everything's great," but they are simultaneously rubbing their neck, avoiding eye contact, and angling their body toward the door. Which message do you think is the truth? Their words or their body? The body never lies. The blueprint of the soul. Unpacking personality. Types. If body language is a real-time broadcast of a person's feelings, then personality is the underlying operating system that runs the whole show. Understanding someone's personality is like knowing the blueprint of their mind. It gives you context for everything they do. And while people are complex, psychologists have developed powerful models to map out the fundamental traits that define us. The most scientifically respected of these is the Big Five model. It suggests that every personality can be described along 5 spectrums. You can remember them with the acronym OCEAN. O is for openness to experience. Are they adventurous, imaginative, and curious? Or are they practical, conventional, and prefer routine? High openness is linked to creativity and leadership. Think of Steve Jobs auditing a calligraphy class. A move that seemed random at the time but led to the beautiful typography of the Mac. That's openness. C is for conscientiousness. This is about discipline and impulse control. Are they organized, careful, and goal-oriented? Or are they impulsive, disorganized, and easily distracted? Highly conscientious people tend to be more successful in their careers and even live longer. E is for extroversion. This one you probably know. Do they draw their energy from being around others, or do they recharge through solitude? A is for agreeableness. How cooperative and empathetic are they? Do they take a genuine interest in others, or are they more competitive and skeptical? N is for neuroticism. This measures emotional stability. Are they generally calm and resilient, or are they prone to anxiety, worry, and mood swings? Now, you can't give everyone you meet a personality test, but you can listen and observe for clues. Does their home or workspace look meticulously organized, high conscientiousness, or creatively chaotic, high openness? Do they talk about their feelings and relationships, high agreeableness, or facts and logic? Another powerful model is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, which sorts people into 16 types based on 4 dichotomies. One popular way to simplify this is through Keirsey's 4 temperaments, the Guardians, SJ. These are the pillars of society. They are dependable, practical, and value security and tradition. They are the administrators and protectors. Think of a responsible parent or a diligent manager. The artisans, SP. These are the people of action. They are adaptable, optimistic, and live for impact and stimulation. They are the troubleshooters and performers. Think of an emergency room doctor or a charismatic entrepreneur. The idealists, NF. These are the champions of the human spirit. They are empathetic, authentic, and seek meaning and personal growth. They are the mentors and advocates. Think of an inspiring teacher or a passionate activist. The rationals, NT. These are the architects of systems. They are strategic, objective, and driven by a thirst for knowledge and competence. They are the engineers and masterminds. Think of a brilliant scientist or a visionary CEO. Can you start to see the people you know in these categories? Again, these aren't rigid boxes. They are blueprints. Knowing if you're talking to a guardian or an artisan completely changes how you should frame your argument. Make your request or offer your support. You would appeal to a guardian's sense of duty, but to an artisan's desire for freedom and impact. You're no longer just talking, you're speaking their language. The Sherlock Holmes method. Observation, deduction, and truth. we have the map of motivation and the blueprint of personality. Now we arrive at the ultimate test of your people reading skills: detecting deception. But here's the trap most people fall into. They believe there's a magical tell for lying, like shifty eyes or touching your nose. The truth is, research has shown that most people, even trained professionals, are no better than chance at spotting liars from body language alone. So how do we do it? We stop looking for a single clue and start thinking like a detective. A lie isn't a static behavior, it's a story, and your job is to find the holes in that story. The secret is to increase the liar's cognitive load. Telling the truth is easy, you just recall events. Telling a lie is hard work. You have to invent a plausible story. Remember all the details of that story. Manage your own nervousness and constantly monitor the other person's reaction, all at the same time. It's an immense mental juggling act. Your job is to make them drop the balls. How? Use strategic conversation. First, use open-ended questions and let them talk. A liar has often rehearsed their initial story, but not the answers to follow-up questions. The more they talk, the more likely they are to contradict themselves. Next, use the element of surprise. Ask an unexpected, even slightly bizarre question that they couldn't possibly have prepared for. The friend you had dinner with. What kind of shoes was he wearing? Watch for the hesitation, the momentary panic as their brain scrambles to invent a new detail. A truth teller might not remember, and they'll comfortably say so. A liar feels the pressure to have an answer for everything. Another powerful technique is to ask them to tell their story in reverse chronological order. It's easy to recall a true sequence of events backward. It is incredibly difficult to recount a fabricated one backward. Their carefully constructed narrative will fall apart. Finally, we come to the power of pure observation, the Sherlock Holmes method. It's about thin slicing, the ability to find patterns from tiny slivers of information. Your intuition is constantly doing this, making snap judgments based on thousands of nonverbal cues. The mistake is to dismiss this gut feeling. The skill is to use your intuition to form a hypothesis, and then use active observation to confirm it. Look beyond the person to their environment. As Sam Gosling explains in his book, Snoop, your possessions are extensions of your personality. Is their office neat and conventional, or full of books and art? What photos are on their desk? What bumper sticker is on their car? These aren't just things, they are identity claims, clues to what a person values and how they see themselves. You can even do this with indirect questions that reveal deep truths. Instead of asking, "What do you value?" ask, "If your house was on fire, what one item would you save?" The person who saves their laptop and the person who saves a book of poetry are telling you two very different stories about their inner world. Ask them, "What animal best describes you?" Their answer, a lion, a dolphin, a fox, is a metaphor for how they see their own strengths and role in the world. In the end, reading people is not about having a single secret trick. It's about a fundamental shift in perception. It's about being curious. It's about listening with your eyes as much as with your ears. It's about understanding that everyone is driven by the same fundamental needs and fears. And when you can see that, when you can see their struggle for safety, their longing for belonging, their ego's desperate defenses, you stop seeing them as difficult and you start seeing them as human. The skills we've discussed are a toolkit for deeper connection. Use them to become a better communicator, a more empathetic friend, a more effective leader. Use them to protect yourself from manipulation, but also to build bridges of understanding. The journey doesn't end here. This was just the first step. The real adventure begins when you close your eyes to the words and open them to the world of human behavior that has been hiding in plain sight all along. If this has sparked your curiosity, don't let it fade. Pick up a copy of Read People Like a Book and continue your journey to becoming a master of human nature.